Billie Eilish, right? Like, she's blown up, hasn't she? It seems like you see her face everywhere these days.
Oh, totally. Charts, magazines, award shows, you name it.
Yeah, exactly. And her music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of unavoidable at this point.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But, today we're not just going to talk about, like, how popular she is.
Right.
We're going deeper.
We are. We're gonna do a deep dive here.
Yeah. We want to look beyond just the surface level.
Okay.
And figure out what makes her tick,
Yeah.
creatively, personally, the whole thing. And we've got a lot to work with here. We've got interviews, we've got articles, we've got, even some things Billie said in her own words.
Cool.
So we really want to try and, like, uncover those hidden layers.
Yeah, those hidden layers.
That people are so curious about, I think there's a lot of mystery there.
Yeah, definitely. And she's become such a global phenomenon, hasn't she?
Totally.
But I think, what's even more interesting is the impact she has that goes way beyond just her music.
Yeah.
She's a real advocate for her generation. There are all sorts of causes that she believes in, and she really uses her voice.
Yeah, and that advocacy, that's really a great place to start, actually. I mean, you can just tell, like, how important it is to her, just as part of who she is.
Right.
One article even mentioned, like, how fans are just dying to know more about those hidden layers of her life.
Right.
Both in her creative process and just, her personal life.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess before we even jump into all this, like, I'm curious, what are you most curious about? With all these hidden layers we keep mentioning, like, what are you hoping we uncover today?
I mean, well, when we talk about these hidden layers in her creative process, right?
Yeah.
You got to remember that, like, she writes and produces most of her music with her brother, Phineas, and they do it in, get this, their childhood home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they use all these, like, unconventional recording techniques, often bringing in, like, found sounds and manipulating the vocals in ways that, they just create this totally unique soundscape,
It's so cool. And it's interesting because, like, some critics have said that this DIY approach is a big part of what makes her music feel so authentic and relatable. It's not like super polished like a lot of the pop music you hear these days.
Totally. It's not that, like, overproduced kind of generic pop sound.
Yeah, exactly.
And, those unique techniques, you can really hear them in the way she uses, like, ASMR-inspired vocals.
Oh, yeah.
Like in Bury a Friend, for example. It creates this kind of unsettling but also intimate feeling that just, like, draws the listener in,
Yeah, it's very effective.
Yeah.
And it's not just the sounds, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's incredibly visual, too.
Oh, absolutely.
From her music videos to, like, her fashion choices. One article talked about how she uses these, like, really bold visuals to challenge, like, traditional beauty standards and express, her own, like, individuality.
Right.
It's almost like performance art,
Absolutely. And then on top of all that, you have her activism.
Oh, right.
Which is, it's just totally intertwined with her personal values.
Yeah.
She's very outspoken about things like mental health, climate change, animal rights.
Yeah.
And it's not just talk either. Like, she actually campaigns and uses her platform to raise awareness for these issues.
Yeah. And, you can even see it in her music, right?
Totally.
Like, All the Good Girls Go to Hell is a pretty direct commentary on climate change. It's interesting, right? Like, using her music as a way to kind of spark conversations about these, important issues.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an effective form of activism?
Well, it definitely gets people talking.
Yeah.
And you can tell her fans really connect with, like, her authenticity and her willingness to speak out,
Right. And of course, anytime you have an artist this popular.
Yeah.
There's going to be, a natural curiosity about their personal life. Not like in a gossipy way.
Right.
But just, people want to try and understand the person behind the music.
Yeah, for sure.
There was this one interview that talked about, like, how she's been in the spotlight since she was a teenager.
Wow.
And how she, like, navigates the pressure of fame while still, trying to stay true to herself.
It's a tough balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something I think a lot of people can relate to, glamorous or not. Finding that balance between being yourself and dealing with, what the world expects of you.
So I think, like, what we've seen here is that Billie Eilish's influence goes way beyond just, like, typical pop stardom.
Yeah.
She's, like, tapping into something deeper. something that resonates with like millions of people.
Totally.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think, as you kind of continue this deep dive into Billie Eilish, here's something to think about. Like, think about the artists that you admire, right?
Okay.
How much does understand like their creative process or, their personal journey change the way that you experience their work? Does it make you appreciate it more? Or, maybe give you some new insights?
Right.
Yeah, just something to think about.
Interesting. Food for thought, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
On the one and only Billie Eilish.
She's something else, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And we'll be back next time with another deep dive into, well, who knows? That's the fun of it.
That's right.
Until then, keep exploring, keep listening, and keep those hidden layers in mind.
I like that. Keep those hidden layers in mind.
See?